Hi, my name is Nancy Brinson. I'm from Sylvania, and first off, I would like to say thank you for the opportunity to dig into my family history and uh, just learn a lot more about my family. And one of the things that was interesting, I guess, about me was that I was one of the first ones to graduate from college with my generation, and I'm also an eighth generation direct descendant of the Salzburgers. One thing I really learned about this assignment was that my family comes from a long line of very hardworking people, and everything that they got because they worked very hard to get there, and every generation continues to improve on the things that they inherited. My father is Charles Theodore Cannon, and my mother is Betty Jean Macmillan. My dad and mother both were from Sylvania, and my dad graduated high school. He was a truck driver, welder, mechanic. He, of course, was a seventh generation Salzburger descendant. My mother attended high school but dropped out in her senior year, and she went back later and earned her GED. She worked as a waitress and a cashier at a grocery store, but later on she became the dietitian at a local nursing home, and that's where she retired from. My father's parents was Aaron Cannon and Essie Grobenstein. My grandfather was from Boston, Georgia, which is down near the Thomasville area. He had a fifth grade education, and he was very, very smart and very motivated. And he ended up establishing the peat moss company, a peat moss company here in Sylvania, and sold peat moss through Georgia, South Carolina, and Florida. And he grew a very successful business. My grandmother was from the Springfield area, and she had a high school education, but she had to drop out in her senior year due to health issues. But she and my grandfather had five children, and she was a housewife and stayed home and took care of them. Then on my mother's side, my grandfather was Rudolph Macmillan, and my grandmother was Lou Waters. He had a third grade education, and he was a sharecropper and a farmer. Their situation was a lot more destitute than my father's parents. They were extremely poor, and my grandfather actually had a drinking problem, and he was not a very nice man. Um, my grandmother was wonderful, though. She did not complete high school, but she was very, very hardworking. She had 11 children. She actually was 12 pregnant 12 times. She miscarried one of her children, and one of her children died when she was just a baby. So she raised 10 children. Um, Extremely hardworking, great attitude, very positive woman. I learned a lot about work ethics and what it takes to be a happy person from my grandma Macmillan. Now, my father's side, his grandfather was David Charles Cannon, and his grandmother was Ella Jordan. And David Charles was an immigrant from Ireland, and from what I understand, he came from a very poor environment, and he was trying to escape a war and a famine that was going on at that time. And the family says he never wanted to talk about his life in Ireland because the situation was so bad. It was just something he always avoided. So there, I don't have a lot of information on him. And the interesting fact about his wife, Miss Grandmother Ella, was that she was full-blooded Cherokee Indian. Now on my grandmother's side, Grandma Grobenstein, her family, her mother and father were Bernard Grobenstein and Maud Ron, and they came from Germany. They were German immigrants who came to the United States for religious reasons, and they settled in the Ebenezer area down near Springfield, Savannah area, if you're not familiar with it. But this is where the very first orphanage in the United States was established, and these are where the Salzburgers landed and established their settlement. And they came here with a land grant, and there's a very nice museum and a conference center that's located at Ebenezer, and it's definitely worth the trip over just to see the beautiful old church, which survived the Revolutionary War and also the Civil War. So it is very, very interesting trip to make. And also at the museum, they have a book listing all of the direct descendants of the Salzburgers, and of course, my whole family is located in that book up until my generation. And once it's updated, my children will also be added to it. On my mother's side, my granddaddy Macmillan's parents were Julius Macmillan and Cynthia Bragg, and the only things I could find out about them was that Granddaddy Julius was a farmer and also a bootlegger, and my grandmother Cynthia was a housewife, and they had 8 children. And on my grandmother's side, I didn't get very much information at all. I know her father's name was Fred Waters, and her mother's name was Essie Oglesby, and they were all from the Sylvania area. And my grandma Macmillan was their only child. And from what I gathered, her parents died when she was fairly young, and she went to live with an aunt or a relative, and I don't believe her home life was very happy in that situation either. So she was a remarkable woman to come up in the circumstances that she lived in her whole life and still have such a positive outlook on things. But anyway, I was not able to get any information further back than the 4th generation, but it was a very interesting assignment, and I appreciate the opportunity to do it. Thank you.